What's up, you guys, and welcome back to the televised podcast. My name is Anna, and today we're going to be talking about Batwoman Season 2, Episode 18, titled Power. This is the Season 2 finale. This episode is going to be... It's going to be pretty different from the usual episode. I have a lot of feelings about the finale, and not a lot of them are good, and I'm gonna be honest, I didn't feel like rewatching the episode to like take notes about exactly what happened and, you know, scene for scene like I normally do. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So instead of doing it like I normally do, which is like talking about the episode as a whole, breaking down kind of exactly what happened as it happened, and then kind of giving my opinion as we go, instead I kind of wrote down a couple of points about the good of the episode, the things I thought were like, you know, fine, and then the things I took real issue with, which is a lot. It's a lot. So this episode's probably not going to be like extremely long like some of my other ones, and I'm just gonna, I guess, get through my feelings and push through it. But I'm not, you know, super hyped to talk about this episode. I think the thing that sucks is that I loved like so much about this episode until the last like 10 minutes, because I thought that everything else in the episode worked really well, but it just kind of like fell apart in the last, you know, like 10 minutes of the episode, and then it kind of it changed everything that happened in the episode, and also during the season it like shaded everything that has happened, and I don't think that it was good in that way. You know, like it had like a domino effect, but like a really bad domino effect onto the rest of the season, and it kind of like the last 10 minutes of this episode really soured the finale, and also, I mean, major parts of this season for me. I mean, not everything, obviously. I think that this season overall was still like really well done and really good, especially for certain characters. I mean, obviously Ryan, we're going to talk about her a little bit, and for Luke especially, he had some really interesting storylines this season, but there's also like, you know, just so much of it that was just like, you know, soured. I mean, I know I said that before, but you know, like just like shaded in a bad way by how the season ended. And it's for me, it's like I don't know if I could go back and rewatch this season and enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, knowing what happens, I don't think I could go back and be like, oh my god, yeah, like I loved this episode. I mean, yeah, maybe for a few like key episodes I could probably go back and still enjoy them and still think that they were really good. But a lot of like the best parts of the season had this really horrible ending. So I don't know. I'm just really upset by what happened, and I really don't want to talk about it, but we're going to, because I also think it's really important, because, I mean, for me, I know that I think it's important to share thoughts and feelings about TV shows. Obviously, I have a passion for it. I talk about shit all the time. Talk about shows that I watch. Talk about movies that I'm watching, because I think that is probably one of the most important elements of the experience of watching television or watching movies or whatever is how they make you feel, and how those stories are received, and what messaging gets told through these stories, and what kind of maybe negative things are being perpetrated potentially, or, you know, whatever. And so I just feel like I don't know. I just feel like it's really important that even though I really just don't want to talk about it, I have to. So I don't know. Let's get into some of the good stuff, because I do want to talk about some of the really like good things that I liked about this episode. Because I mean, like I said, I was having a blast until the last 10 minutes of this episode. So, obviously, I think one of the best parts of the episode was Batwing. I adored seeing Luke suit up for the first time. It was so awesome to see, and it was so cool just to like, especially the backstory of it, that his dad had been working on this suit because Luke had drawn up these designs when he was a kid, and that's just so sweet. And it was just such a cool full circle moment for Luke to finally almost, it's like he was able to connect with his dad again, you know, like he had decided to die, literally to die, to stay with his dad, and now he finds that his dad is actually responsible for creating this suit that's going to protect him so he can't die. Like, that's like poetic. That shit's poetic. It's so good. And I love that. So I thought that was really great. I think the rescuing Mary was so cute. That was such a cute moment. And I don't know if they're gonna go there with Luke and Mary. I hope they do. I hope that they go there with Luke and Mary. But it just feels like, why did they drop it this past season? But it's fine. It's fine. There'll be a cute slow burn. But it was just really charming to watch Luke fumble around in the suit, and just to see him kick Menace's ass was super awesome as well. And I really liked that he called himself Justice in that fight, because it just felt so empowering, and it just held so much weight for the way that Luke has struggled throughout the season, you know? So I don't know. Like I said, that was kind of one of the highlights for me of this episode, was finally seeing Luke put on the suit, become a hero, even though he already was a hero outside of the suit, but like to take that out into the field and to rescue Mary. I thought that was just really wonderful. Hopefully a setup for Mary and Luke next season. I don't know. But yeah, I really liked it. I thought that cameras did a really good job. I think the suit looked awesome. Especially, I think it's up there with some of the top Arrowverse suits, especially like the mech kind of suits, you know, like the Atom had a really sick suit. Ray Palmer had such a sick suit. And I think that this Batwing suit is almost reminiscent of that in a way. Just like how cool it looked, how commanding it looked on screen. And I love that they had the actual practical lights inside of the suit. That's awesome. I love that it's not, you know, like CG lighting after the fact. Adore that. Because it makes it feel real within the space. I mean, I think a lot of suits have some issues with like looking real, especially because a lot of like, with Marvel or whatever, they're CGI, or like Cyborg, his body was almost entirely CGI. And it's like, with this, I love how the Arrowverse, you know, say what you want about the Arrowverse and their lack of budget, but I think in some cases it really does help them, because it forces them to create really cool suits, because they don't have the money for computer graphics, but they can create a suit that is commanding on screen and looks super cool and has that, you know, magical effect to it that I think sometimes can be missing when it's just, you know, computer suits. So I think it's really cool. It's definitely, I mean, like I said, it's up there in the top Arrowverse suits for sure. Another highlight of the episode was Ryan finally getting released from parole. She's a free woman, and I mean, it's been such a wonderful journey to watch her grow throughout the season, and it was just so satisfying to see her finally turn the corner on this and finally be able to live her life free of the burden of parole, and obviously, you know, having the system on her neck every single second. It was just really nice to be able to kind of like think about who she was at the beginning of the season, so beat down by the system simply just for, you know, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and being wrongfully convicted of this crime, and then now to standing in front of the parole board and saying, I am not a different person. I am the same person that was wrongfully locked up, however, I think a year ago or however long ago it was that Ryan was arrested and first put in jail. And she's like, yeah, I just, I'm not different. I'm the same person. And if anything, I think that I've just elevated who I really am. So I loved that. But then also it was obviously really funny to hear her be like, but I'm going to tell you what you want to hear because I want to get off parole. So I really liked that. And I love that she's finally kind of able to be free of that and be able to be the hero that Gotham deserves. Not held back anymore by, this the oppressive system and the unfair chokehold that the system has had on her life. And it's such a great moment, and I love Ryan, and I'm just so happy for her because it was just, I don't know, it was just wonderful. I think it'd be interesting to go back and watch the first episode and look at Ryan and then look at her at the end of the season and see the difference in who she has become. Because even though yes, Ryan said, oh, I haven't changed. She's still the same person. But she also has changed. And I think that's really beautiful to kind of recognize that she is the same person fundamentally, but now she has come into her own and discovered that she can be a hero despite her circumstances and despite what other people might assume about who she is able to harness her power and use it. And I really like that. I thought that was really cool. And obviously, the title of the episode kind of relates to both Ryan and Luke because of this, because they're both stepping into their power, both figuratively and literally. Luke stepping into this very powerful suit, and then Ryan stepping into her power by finally being able to be free and, recognizing that she is, a free woman and changed, but also not changed. I really like that. I thought that worked really well. And like I said, it's been such a pleasure to watch Ryan grow as a character over the course of this season. Another moment that I thought was really great was Alice's moment of revenge on Black Mask, which was so satisfying. I loved that Alice, who is known for fixing faces, took Roman's face away from him. She's known for repairing faces or giving people new faces or whatever. But then for Black Mask, she pours, Joker's acid flower. She sprays it in his face and then melts his mask to his face. It's pretty gross, but it was the perfect vehicle for Alice to get revenge, and I loved that. It was so good. And for me, it was such a great revenge moment, not only for her, but also for Kate, for what Kate went through because of him and everything. And also, for Gotham as well. She heard his plans that he was going to use his Roman Sionis personality and face to become this, savior of Gotham. And she decided to take that away from him. She took away his power, his civilian face, took away his trusted face, I guess is what I should say. And I love that. I think it was a truly chaotic, heroic moment for Alice. For me, I think that moment was when I was watching in the moment. I was like, oh my God, this is the start. This is the beginning of Alice finally stepping into kind of this anti-hero role where she's doing good things, but she also does them in kind of ways that maybe a traditional hero would not. And I think that kind of perfectly describes exactly what happened in that moment with Black Mask. And it was really cool to watch. It was really, really wonderful, which is why it made it so frustrating what happened later. So then I have some things that I'm kind of lukewarm on. One thing being the Alice and Ryan dynamic, at least mainly in that scene between the two of them where Alice is apologizing for what she did to Ryan's mom, and Ryan will not accept her apology, which is warranted from Ryan's perspective. Obviously, she does not have to forgive the woman who killed her mother, or the woman that she feels is responsible for killing her mother, since it really wasn't Alice's hand that killed her mother. But their dynamic is really interesting, and it's great because it's clear that they're both two sides of the same coin, which is something that I've talked about before, where each of them have had this trauma but reacted to it very differently. But I think one thing that kind of the show has failed on is understanding the gravity of Alice's lack of choice in how she handled her trauma post-Enigma. And I think another thing that is glaringly obvious in the scene between Alice and Ryan, for when, that I was talking about just a second ago, where she is trying to apologize and Ryan will not accept her apology, is that the writers maybe overestimate how much the audience will unflinchingly support Ryan, which doesn't mean that, like, I'm not on Ryan's side in that moment, because I just said it's obviously very warranted that she will not forgive the woman who she feels is responsible for killing her mother. But that being said, we also have spent almost this entire season being shown Alice as a changed person, or Alice as an examination of everything that she's been put through, including mental modification at the hands of Enigma. She had her choice to love and to care and to be a good person taken away from her. She had her choice removed, literally, surgically, basically, psychologically. She had her choice removed. And I think when you spend the entire season showing the audience that, it's a bit confusing when then the show expects you to kind of like throw away all of that we just saw and unflinchingly take Ryan's side. Because also the thing is, like I've talked about before, how Ryan is a very complex and complicated hero, and how she's made decisions that are very different to that of a traditional hero like Supergirl or The Flash, which I think is great. It's wonderful. It's so cool, and it makes her such a great character. But the show sometimes doesn't act like she's as complicated as she is, and I think that's a really weird disconnect that I've found, between being an audience member and what is happening on the screen. Because like I said, we've had such insight into exactly why Alice is the way she is, and we've seen her true heart throughout the entire season, and it's like the worst kind of dramatic irony, where we as the audience know exactly why Alice is the way she is, because of abuse she suffered not only at the hands of Cartwright, but also at the hands of Enigma and Sophia, and yet Jacob is really the only one who knows the true extent of it. Ryan knows vaguely what happened to her, but because of what Alice's gang did to her mom, she doesn't really care to learn beyond that, which, like I said, is totally understandable. But for the audience, it's completely frustrating to watch Alice make all this progress throughout the season, only for her humanity to be denied over and over again, especially by a character like Ryan, who's made morally gray choices as well. Alice pointed it out. She's like, hey, why am I supposed to be nice to you when you let me get taken by Cersei and then tortured by Black Mask? What makes you better than me because of that? And if I remember correctly, because I didn't rewatch the episode, but I remember kind of Ryan having just moving on from that, or having an answer of like, well, I'm a hero. And it's like, but that's not, saying you're a hero doesn't make you a hero. And I think that Ryan's complexity is what makes her so interesting. Ryan, because of that decision, that is what makes her so interesting. The choice to leave Alice behind. That's interesting. But don't act like she didn't do it, or don't act like it wasn't wrong just because of what Alice might have done, like, especially when you think of, in comparison, and I hate saying this again and again, but in comparison to Supergirl, who would save anybody except for Lex Luthor, you know? But I mean, Lex Luthor is literally a tyrant. Like, that is so different from who Alice is, especially because Lex Luthor does all of his shit of his own free will and volition, and yet Alice was manipulated and literally psychologically tortured and literally had her ability to love and make human decisions taken away from her. There's no comparison. She's not this glaringly evil creature. And it just causes a disconnect when you've taken this entire season to show the audience that Alice is not this evil, horrible creature, to then have Ryan kind of like spit back in her face and be like, well, you deserved to be taken by Black Mask. That's fine. It's just a weird disconnect, and I think it's a weird precedent to set on the show of like Ryan deciding who deserves to be saved and who doesn't. I don't know, it's just kind of weird because like every other superhero show I've watched has that kind of morality where like everybody deserves to be saved or to be given a chance or whatever, unless you're Lex Luthor. And it's just like, I don't know. I mean, obviously, like I said, Ryan doesn't owe Alice anything, but it's just weird as an audience member to have watched all of that, have this sense of closeness to Alice, or at least a sense of who she is as a person, and yet here's the main character and basically all of the other main characters denying her humanity over and over and over again, except for Jacob Kane and Kate for like 5 minutes until she changed her mind, but we're going to talk about that later. And this is, I mean, I don't want anybody to get me wrong that this is like a critique of Ryan, because it's not. I'm saying that her complex choices are really interesting, but I think that the show should be able to frame them as complex and as layered choices, and as maybe maybe that wasn't necessarily the right thing to do, even though Ryan maybe deserved to let Alice go and get revenge for her mother in that way. Like, yeah, maybe she deserved it, but was it really the right thing to do? And I think the show should be a bit more conscious of that. And I mean, I've talked about this before. You know, this is before anything happened in the finale that I kind of had these feelings about Ryan and her complexity, but it was just kind of obvious in this episode, especially with that conversation between Alice and Ryan, where the show was kind of like, but you're evil, so it's fine that like she just like left you to die. You know, it's just weird. It's like a weird situation. Especially when you compare Alice to somebody like the Joker or something. You know, like Alice is not some, you know, evil overlord who's like, she's not Black Mask. She's not the Joker. She's not Lex Luthor. She is an incredibly complex character as well, who has this emotion and this heart, especially, newly restored after this entire season of showing us how she was restoring that part of herself in little ways. But I don't know if she could necessarily ever go back to being full-fledged Beth Kane, you know? And I don't think that really she should ever go back to being full-fledged Beth Kane, because that would be ignoring all of the trauma that she went through. But I also think it's important to acknowledge that now she is taking steps to becoming a better person. And we've seen that in every single episode this season. She has taken steps to try to do things. Maybe they might be morally gray things, but things for the greater good. And so I don't know. I think that that's something that maybe the show should think about. Just because it's like, you know, it's just a really interesting framing for your hero. And I think that maybe they should maybe try to frame her more like Oliver Queen, who did, you know, bad things, but also they were good, you know. I don't know, but either way, this is, like I said, this is not really like a critique of Ryan per se. It's just the way that conversation was framed that I was like, well, wait a minute, my guy. Also, another thing that I was really lukewarm on was Ocean and Alice. Surprise! Everyone knows how much I hate them. Everybody knows how much I just don't believe that they really cared about each other because of missing conversations and, missing moments between the two of them that I think would have filled in a lot of the blanks, but they cut them out. So, his appearance in this episode was just too much. I just still don't believe that he had this like change of heart and between disagreeing about Kate and then they make out and everything is fine. But I guess characters making inconsistent choices and decisions after off-screen conversations is just a staple when it comes to the Kane sisters, especially in this episode and this season. I don't want to talk about that anymore because I've talked about them a lot before. You can listen to a couple of my previous episodes where I've really like broken down Ocean and Alice to the point where I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Okay, also, the last lukewarm thing that I have to talk about is this. Really, actually, technically, should go under the list of things that I loved, which was really, for me, the best part of the episode, but because of what happens afterwards, I can't really put it there because I want to be able to segue into my rant about how angry I am. So here we go. So Ryan and Cersei, towards the end of the episode, get into a fist fight, and it is so good. And Cersei is scary as hell, and Ryan is absolutely not, she's obviously not in her bat suit, and it's a really, really cool fight. And Alice rolls up, and Ryan passes her the snake bite, and Alice sprays Cersei in the face with it and accidentally tackles them both into the water. And it's very clearly reminiscent of season 1 when both Kate and Alice were in the water. And while they're under the water, Alice gets to say goodbye to Ocean, which, like I talked about. And then also in Kate and Alice's shared mind space, young Kate goes down to the basement. She goes down the basement stairs to the door and opens it. And young Alice and Kate finally get to hug and be reunited. And Alice wakes first and drags Kate out to the shore. Ryan and Alice perform CPR on her, and Alice is genuinely a mess. Like, oh my god, she cannot lose her sister again. And finally, Kate comes to consciousness, spitting water everywhere, just choking, and the first thing that comes out of her mouth is Beth. And as soon as that happens, Alice is arrested. What? It's like, what? Like, when were the cops called? How did they get there? How did they think? Like, why did they think a high-speed chase, if that's what they were upset about? Like, if that's who got the police called on them, like, if it was the chase between Cersei and Batwoman, like, why was that more important than the chaos that was going on in Gotham? Unless Roman sent them after Alice, but also it's like, what? I don't know. I just, oh my god. So speaking of which, then the last 10 minutes of the episode, they managed to ruin the entire season. So Kate, who is finally Kate, reveals that for some reason she has decided to give up on Alice and go find Bruce instead. So first of all, talking about this as a character decision for Kate feels so disrespectful to her character. Like, it paints her as having not changed in any way her opinion, or in just personally, her opinion on her sister from that season 1 episode where she locked her away in Arkham, despite all of Alice's efforts to get her back and save her, like, despite this clear change of heart. And if anything, Kate should be more understanding since they were both under the influence of Enigma, and she should understand that Alice needs help, not to be locked away in prison, and that she's the only one who understands her well enough to help her. And it just doesn't make sense to go after Bruce because of her guilt about Alice, when Alice is literally still locked up and in prison. Like, hello, if you really felt guilty about Alice, then you would fucking help her. It's so inconsistent because literally what happened between Kate waking up on the beach with the first word out of her mouth being Beth to deciding that Alice or Beth or whoever deserves to rot in hell? Like, literally, how did we get there? How did we make that jump from literally Kate opening the door in her mind and Alice finally freeing her from the prison that was Cersei in her mind, and finding Alice and finding Beth and whatever? How did we get from there to literally cut away, go to, I think it was Ryan's hearing, and then we cut to Kate talking about her plans, and she says, well, I just, she's got to just do this on her own. That's not how this works. Oh my God. You can't just leave somebody high and dry after they just spent like a year trying to get you back and save you. And it's like, what? And also, I mean, just like for Kate as a character, why would she give up on Alice again? It's just like, why would you character assassinate Kate like that in the last time that we might ever see her, Caroline was going on and on about how this was supposed to be like a full circle moment, a really proper send-off to Kate Kane. Like, okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's paint her as a really horrible sister to both Alice and Mary, and let's paint her as a really horrible friend, really horrible lover, really horrible this, and just send her off. Bye, she's going to find Bruce. Like, that doesn't make any goddamn sense. It's so stupid. Oh my God. And then from an Alice perspective, this is also extremely frustrating because as an audience member, we spent literally the entire season watching Alice go to the ends of the earth to save Kate, and we watched her save and help people she normally wouldn't save or help, and we watched her work towards becoming a better person, only for her to end up in jail. Like, just like her abusers, Cartwright and Sophia would have wanted. Like, they really ended the episode with Alice back to being quote-unquote evil, and it feels like we're right back to where we started with her. Like, if... The thing is, like, if I were Rachel, I would be so pissed. Like, she just put in 18 episodes worth of her best work towards showing Alice's humanity and complexity, and basically all of it was undone. And for what? Like, literally for what? Alice's goal this entire season was saving Kate, was helping Kate. And then she gets thrown in prison and Kate leaves? Like, so what was her purpose this entire season? What was her storyline? What did her storyline amount to? Literally nothing. And it's just like, what? Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And what? And I want to, like, emphasize this so heavily because it's like, literally, what changed for Kate, especially between waking up on the beach and the first fucking word that comes out of her mouth is her sister's name, Beth. And then all of a sudden she gets arrested and it's like, oh, well, I hate her. I can't save her. She needs to save herself. I'm gonna go. I feel really guilty, though, about never finding her, and never, like, rescuing her from the cage that she was locked up in, so I'm gonna go find Bruce. Like, what? If you want to, cure your guilt of what you never were able to do for Alice, how about you help her now, because she still needs your help. Because she is, like I said, if anyone could understand, it would be Kate Kane, who just spent, however long with Cersei Sionis in her head, banging around in her skull because of what Enigma did to her. If anyone could understand what Alice has been through, it's Kate. Nobody else has the motivation or the care or the connection to Alice to actually help her. And so I just don't understand why any of this happened. And for me, it would have made so much more sense for Kate to have stuck around Gotham and actually decided to help her sister, maybe like bust her out of jail, leave Gotham for a few episodes as a B plot, and then eventually be forced back where Alice has to deal with the ideas of becoming better, not only for her sister, but for herself. And it makes me even more mad because Caroline did an interview where she basically said that Alice is really difficult to love and that, I think she might be redeemable, but we don't know. But if you didn't think that she was redeemable, why did you spend an entire season proving that she is? Why did you spend an entire season proving that Alice is in fact redeemable and she has the capacity to love and she has the capacity to be good if you really don't believe that and if you're not going to invest in that character in any way? This doesn't make any goddamn sense. Oh my god, like, we're back to where we started with Alice. Like, at the beginning of the season, we started with Alice being evil and Kate missing or gone from Gotham, and we literally are back to where we started. We're literally back to full circle. It feels like we just ran in a circle with, like, most of the characters on this show. I mean, the same thing kind of with Mary. Mary was tasked with putting her family back together, and now it's like we're full circle again where she has no family left. She has no family. Jacob's gone, Kate's gone, her mom's gone, Alice is in jail. Like, hello? What? Like, for Mary, for her to be, you know, her character development to have been a circle this season, it just, it's like, why? Why? And it also begs the question, why did they spend 18 episodes building up to Kate's return? About a year ago, Caroline released a statement that said she would not be using the bury your gaze trope on Kate, and at this point, I almost wish that she had. I almost wish she just killed her. Because then, you know, we wouldn't have been strung along for 18 episodes only to lose Kate again. Like, we would have just nipped that right in the bud, and then it could have been Ryan's show, but it wasn't. The thing is that there are people online, and, you know, obviously people defending Ryan, which obviously they have the right to do, and I'm not shitting on Ryan in any way, but there are people like, well, this is Ryan's show. Why would you expect Kate to stick around? But the reality is that it really wasn't Ryan's show yet. They didn't invest in her fully. If you watch the episodes, more than half, like literally 16 out of 18 episodes are focused on either finding Kate or mourning Kate or talking about Kate or being about Kate in some way, especially Alice's story, especially when Luke and Mary were invested in finding Kate, especially later when literally everybody's storyline revolved around pulling Kate out of Cersei. This season was half about Ryan, half about Kate. It was just as much about Kate as it was about Ryan. I think that that's not really a ridiculous expectation to think maybe we would spend more time with Kate Kane. For multiple episodes in the beginning of the season, we had the Bat team's search for Kate, Alice's search for Kate, then Kate's quote-unquote death, then Alice's search for Kate again, then the Bat team's search for Kate again, then Alice's mission to save Kate, then the Bat team's mission to save Kate. We spent at least 16 out of 18 episodes dealing with Kate's storyline in some way. And it genuinely feels cruel to put the audience through that, only to send her away again in the last 10 minutes. And also, I mean, like I said earlier, Caroline claimed that they wanted Kate's exit to be full circle and that her story was wrapped up, but it wasn't. If anything, they just added more and more trauma and storyline to her character, and they just sent her away. Like, yeah, they didn't bury her, but they physically and psychologically tortured her, built up a reunion with her family, and especially her sister, and then wrote her out of the show without actually unpacking any of it. And you honestly can't tell me that even if Kate didn't want to deal with Alice, she would just up and leave Mary and Luke after going through what she went through, especially with her dad in jail. She's all Mary has left, and I don't think that my Kate Kane would leave her high and dry. I just don't. It doesn't make sense. Like, from a storytelling perspective, why would you spend 18 episodes? 18 episodes! The entire season building up for this Kate Kane return, only to be like, but she's leaving. Like, just kill her off. Oh my god. Like, at least we wouldn't have been put through this. We had 2 episodes this entire season where Kate was actually herself. I think it probably combined to about like 12 minutes of total, maybe 12 minutes of total Kate Kane screen time this season, and to spend 18 episodes of your story building up to and talking about Kate Kane only to spend 18 minutes with her and not unpack any of the trauma that we just watched her go through for 18 episodes. It's just bad writing. It just doesn't make sense. It's like, why would you do that? You created an expectation in your audience, and now you're confused as to why people are like, well, why is Kate leaving? Why are you confused? You know? It would have made so much more sense for Kate to have continued to stay in Gotham for season 3 with her storyline being helping Alice, because at this point, there's literally no one left in the Bat fam to actually help her. So I can't see a redemption arc for her without Kate being there. It would have been so interesting to watch Mary and Ryan deal with Alice's rehabilitation, with the tension of not trusting Alice, but trusting Kate, with what she believes in and how she can help her. And at this point, it's so hard to say how this next season is going to go because so many key players are gone, and it just feels like we're back to episode 1 of season 2, wondering why certain characters should even care about Ryan or be connected to her story. Like, Jacob Kane is written off, Kate Kane's written off, Julia Pennyworth was written off for God knows why, Alice being back to a villain, and no character left on the show having any interest to help her, so her redemption is slim to none, and then Sophie left hanging with losing Kate all over again, which I couldn't even enjoy the one gay kiss we got this season because of the context. And it just feels like the show is becoming a shell of what it once was and could be, and it doesn't even really feel like Batwoman anymore because so many of the key elements are gone. And that's not to say that Ryan's not Batwoman, because it is, but it feels very disconnected from the comics in that way and from the original story that the show was telling. And I just don't understand why you would bring Kate back into the equation if you had no plan to continue telling her story, and if you were going to end it in such a shitty way. You know, like, the writing just feels so inconsistent from one episode to the next. Like, why would Mary, or like, why would they write? So not just like, why would Jacob ask this? No, it's like, why would they include this in the episode? Why would Jacob task Mary? Why would they write Jacob tasking Mary with bringing their family back together if they knew the plan was to just write Kate off? What was the point of that? I mean, in some moments, it almost feels like they were planning to have her in season 3, but something changed last minute and they had to rework it all, because I don't know what could have changed, because Wallace has clearly expressed that she would have loved to continue being Kate, so it wasn't anything to do with her, but, like, I just don't understand. You know, why would they do that? Why would they set up so many things only to just, like, drop the ball in the last 10 minutes of the episode and be like, goodbye, we'll never see you again? It doesn't make sense. And also, I mean, you know, speaking about Wallace, I genuinely just can't praise her enough for the job that she did as Kate during the short time she was able to be her, especially the scene between her and Rachel where Alice showed her the mind reader mug. It truly meant so much to me, and I know her Kate Kane meant so much to so many others as well. And I can't thank her enough for the work that she did, and I can't stress enough how much I wish her the best for the future. It's just a fucking shame that it's not on Batwoman. At this point, I just feel played. I feel baited and played and gross about how this went down. And genuinely, like, this is not just me expecting shit and not getting it and then throwing a fit. Like, Kate's return is something that has been building throughout the entire 18 episodes of the season, only for it to culminate in her leaving without any closure for anything that happened to her over the course of those 18 episodes. I just can't understand why. Why string us all along like that? Why give us hope? It feels like queerbaiting in a way, where we were strung along for 18 episodes and now we're being gaslit by the creators who want to say that her story was wrapped up in 10 minutes when it absolutely wasn't. Like, listen, I'm a television student. I've written multiple scripts. I've taken multiple critical media studies classes, and I can clearly say without any emotion seeping into this that this was poorly executed. It just is poor writing, especially for the development of both Alice and Kate as characters. I just would love to hear the unfiltered thoughts of some of the cast about this decision, like, especially Rachel and Wallace, who I feel like both got royally screwed by this finale, and I'd just love to hear what they have to say. At this point, I don't know where I stand with Batwoman. Might cover it, might not. The ending cliffhanger with Poison Ivy, the Penguin, and the Mad Hatter looked awesome, and I'm curious about who Ryan's biomom could possibly be, but I don't know if I have it in me to invest in the show the way I did this past season, and that feeling sucks. I think I'll still watch, but we'll see how I feel about it when the premiere date comes running up. Supergirl will be airing then, so we'll see, but, yeah. I'm sorry that I spent this episode just, like, yelling. I'm just so mad, and I just feel like, why? I just have so many questions. Like, I want to ask Caroline, why? Why did you do this? Why? Like, what? Like, honestly, I think the thing is that I would have had no problem with any of this if they hadn't been like, because the thing is, I mean, if they had just revealed halfway through the season that, yeah, Kate's dead, like if they hadn't done that cliffhanger where, the barbershop cliffhanger where we saw Kate underground, with her face burned off, if they hadn't done that, this season would have been so much better with the way that it turned out, I mean, obviously, while it was airing, I really enjoyed the Kate and Cersei stuff, but at the end of the day, with the way that it ended, I wish it hadn't happened. It feels gross, and I just don't understand the motivation. I don't understand why they would spend 18 episodes doing this, telling this story about Kate. You can't sit here and say that this season wasn't as much about Kate as it was Ryan, because it was. There's no way that you can say that, because if you go back, there are at least 3 episodes named after Kate. And then I went and looked, and at least half of the episodes have Kate's name in the episode description. And almost every episode had some kind of journey to find Kate, or some kind of whatever to find Kate or save Kate or whatever. And it just doesn't make sense that she would just leave, or that they would just write her off. Like, it's at this point, it's almost less about the character, and it's more about just like asking the writers why they did this, because it just felt so gross. It felt like losing Kate all over again for like a third time, And I just, I hate that. And I feel so bad, especially for Jewish lesbians who saw themselves in Kate and maybe saw a glimmer of hope that the Jewish representation would come back onto this show. And then it didn't. And then it just up and left to go find Bruce. And it's like, it just, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's just really hard to it's hard to understand why they did that. And I would love to ask. Would love to ask Caroline why they did that. So just why did you guys do that? Why didn't you just kill her? I would have preferred that. Sure, the optics would have been bad for like a week, but now you spent your entire second season talking about Kate Kane, and then you just wrote her off. Like, whew, okay. And there's so much. The thing is, too, that superhero shows now are ensemble shows. I mean, even Batwoman, to an extent, already is an ensemble show. Like, yeah, it's about Batwoman, but it's also about everybody else. Like, and so like with Supergirl, where, yeah, it's called Supergirl, but it's also like really about Alex and Jean and Brainy and Dreamer and Nia and Lena and Kelly. It's about all of those people and about their relationships to Supergirl and about their stories as well, not just Kara's. And I think Batwoman is exactly the same way. It's about Luke, it's about Mary, it's about Alice, obviously it's about Ryan, but it's like, there's room in that ensemble for Kate Kane, and I don't think it would have taken anything away from the show. And I don't think that Kate should have ever become Batwoman again. That's not what I'm asking for. I love Ryan as Batwoman, and I think she brings so much to the character. And I think that the show with Ryan as the lead is great, and it's wonderful, and it works. But I also think that there's room for Kate on the show, as, at least in helping maybe for a season to rehabilitate Alice, because again, like, this is a character that is so integral to the show and is really one of the hearts of the show. And then for Kate as well, to work through all of the trauma that the show just put her through, to work through having somebody else in her mind, to work through being physically and psychologically tortured for however long Roman had her, to work through a plane crash and being burned alive. Like, oh my God, you know, there's so much trauma and so much pain that Kate went through in this entire season that was not dealt with and never will be dealt with. And that just feels so gross, and it feels like such a terrible ending for this character that is so beloved. And it just is like, what? And the thing is, too, I mean, they found the perfect person to play Kate Kane. They found the perfect person, and they just let her go. And it's like, this is absolutely ridiculous. I can't believe this. Well, thank you for listening. Sorry that I spent half this episode yelling. I just am really mad about what happened, and I don't know. We'll see. You know. Yeah. So over the hiatus, because obviously we have a bit of time between now and when Supergirl comes back in mid-August. So I will be putting out a couple of episodes that, you know, aren't really like TV recap episodes. They're more like standalone episodes. I'm going to be talking about maybe different shows I'm watching, movies, whatever. I have a couple of things planned that I want to talk about. So I'm be on the lookout for those. They'll either come out on either like a Wednesday or a Saturday. That's normally when I post. You can follow me on Twitter to get, you know, to stay up to date with what I'm going to be doing, because it's going to be a little bit inconsistent just during this hiatus, just because I'm not going to be on like a weekly schedule. It might be a bi-weekly thing. Haven't quite decided yet. I have a couple of things to get written before I decide how many episodes are going to be out, how often they're going to be posted, whatever. But just follow me on Twitter at televisepod, and you can stay up to date with everything that's going to be happening. And yeah, thank you guys so much for sticking with me through this entire Batwoman season. I can't lie, it's been really fun to cover the season. Obviously, I'm really sad that it ended on such a shit note. But yeah, also a while ago, I never mentioned this because I didn't want it to be weird, but Wallace Day tweeted that she actually listens. So thank you for listening. It means a lot to me. It kind of, it made me feel really good, and it really like validated what, like, that people want to listen and that I have good opinions about the show. That sounds weird, but like, you know, it made me feel really happy to know that that you cared enough to listen, and that you took the time to listen. It's really cool. So thank you so much, and thank you for being Kate. And I don't even know if you're listening now, but thank you for being Kate, and you know, for the time that you had her. Thank you. So yeah, that's all I have for today. Be sure to rate, share, like, subscribe, do all the things. Leave me a comment below. Let me know what you thought of this finale. I'm expecting a lot of differences of opinion. We'll see what happens. Just let me know, and you can tweet me at televisepod. Let me know what you thought of the finale, and I will see you guys next time.